Welcome to the second breakdown video of my Mardini submissions. In this video we will go over my setup for the wooden toys and how I rendered them all in Solaris with Karma XPU. The node of the day was Lab's Simple Shapes. Let's see how this node was used. You see, the scene itself is kept very simple. It only consists of simple shapes, and let's start with this tower here. I start with the Simple Shapes node and I choose the circle here. Then poly extrude the circle, UV unwrap, poly bevel the edges, copy transform to copy some of them and make them smaller. Here I copied the parameter of the distance and paste it in here with paste the relative references. So if I change the poly extrude size, it always works. Then a match size to make it a uniform size in the scene, and two transforms to scale it up a little and to place it in the scene. Then I use the connectivity node to create a class attribute and the color node to color each object randomly. And here you can select the random from attribute color type, and then you select the class attribute to get the actual random color on each object. And it's important to name your pieces to later add your material in Solaris based on the name. Here I use the basic $OS expression to just get the name of the node. So you see tower 1 or test, and you get this one. The second tower looks like this. I started again with a circle, and I use this hole, this cut hole option here in this node. Cut a small hole in the middle. Poly extrude with an inset. Poly bevel, UV unwrap, copy and transform. Again, the same relative reference from the poly extrude with the distance parameter here. And I make it a little bit smaller. And I shift it in the X and Z distance to just have it not that uniform. Match size, and to transform node to place it in the scene. And name it. This spiral circle thing started with circle again. I clip the half of it. Poly extrude, bevel, normal, because I got some normal issues here. Then use a quad remesh to basically smooth the whole geometry. Copy and transform, make it smaller, so you get this cool effect here. UV unwrap, match size, and again transform it and place it in the scene. And I named it Spiral. This one, the wooden box, I started with a quad and with the hole in the middle with the cut hole options. Poly extrude, bevel, quad remesh to smooth it. Here I just created a box and I copied it a few times. Then use a Boolean node to cut these shapes from the original geometry. Quad remesh to smooth it. Then I use a poly reduce because you won't see any difference if you look at this with a smooth shaded viewport view. You see there's no much of a difference. UV unwrap, match size, and then I place it again in the scene and named it box. Let's go to the star, to the first one. Here I use the star option, square star, poly extrude, bevel, quad remesh, poly reduce, UV unwrap, match size, and I named it star 1. The second star looks like this. Star type regular star, poly extrude, bevel, quad remesh, poly reduce, match size, different transform nodes to place it in the scene, and I named them again. Let's go to the wooden house. Started with a circle with only 5 sides and round corners. Then I use a poly extrude to build the actual house size. Poly bevel. Here, just a basic box with a bevel on top here. Just choose the edges here. Boolean. Cut out the box. Bevel. Then I convert it to a VDB and back to have a smooth geometry. Quad remesh to smooth it even further. UV unwrap, poly reduce, and then I placed it in the scene. And I named it. Let's go to the dinosaurs. It's super simple. You have some horns or spikes here on the back, 4 wheels, and a basic dinosaur's shape. I started with a curve to draw the base shape, resampled it to basically smooth it with subdivision curves. I extrude the curve, use a match size to bring it back in the middle. Before that it was on the z-axis, so here I have it in the middle again. Bevel the edges, then a simple boolean with a tube, cut out the eye, bevel again, then 2 holes for the wheels later, bevel, convert it to a VDB and back to a geometry, quad remesh to smooth it, and I named it. For the spikes or horns, I use the match size again, use the add sub to just get the points and delete the geometry. You have to enable this one here. You just get the points. Then I blast the top parts of the points, like the back ones. I use the add sub again to create a line by group. Use the resample, orient along curve to get my normals. Otherwise I don't have any. And with orient along curve you get your normals along the curve. For the spikes I use the simple shapes node again with a circle with 3 sides, so you get a triangle. Poly extrude, match size, bevel, bevel again, match size, quad remesh to smooth it, and poly reduce because you don't need that high poly count, and topology doesn't really matter here. And I copy 2 points, so you have the spikes on top of the back of the dinosaurs. For the wheels I just use 2 tubes, simple shapes again with a circle. Just create this small wheel, merge them together. Use a boolean to union, like the operation is union, to have one mesh. If you select 3D, you have one mesh. Before that you had individual meshes. And then I could use the quad remesh, because if you don't have the boolean, the quad remesher just operates on each object. With the boolean option union, you have just one big object. Named it, and then I merged it all together. Here I use again the connectivity node to create a class attribute to later color the spikes in different colors in Solaris. match size, transform sub, place it in the scene. The character in the back is super simple, just a basic curve, resample, poly extrude, bevel, quadrimesh, UVs, and body is just a basic sphere. I use the edit sub with a soft transform to deform the sphere a little, and the arms are just tubes transformed and placed on the body. Here again I use the Boolean option union to make one big object, and then use the quadrimesh to smooth and generate a better mesh. Again, match size and with character name. For the dust, I use the same setup as in the breakdown before. A box, create a volume, gather some points, and use an attribute adjust float to create random p-scale values for each point. Since it's a super basic scene, I merged everything together and I used just one null to bring it into Solaris. And so it was easier for me to organize the things here. Just merge everything together, use this null, and let's jump into Solaris. Here in Solaris, I use a sub import to import my scene and the dust. And I use the sub create to create this grid as a floor for the whole scene. You can use the sub create to actually work in subs directly. You can do whatever you want. You have all your nodes in here, but I prefer to work in subs directly. Then I use the material library and the material linker. The material linker here is really handy because you have all your materials on the left side and your named objects on the right, so you can just drag and drop your material on the objects. I use grayscale gorilla textures. I think I use 3 of them and just rotate them differently. And let's have a look how I colored this tower here. If you go inside there. So if you remember, I created a class attribute and then used the color sub to create different color values for each object on this tower. I can actually use the color if you use the display color attribute in Solaris. Then color ramp to color how you want them to be. And then I multiply it with the actual wood texture. So if you look at the texture itself, just a basic texture, then I multiply it based on the color ramp and change this sand, twilight, or white to red, get different values. Then I create my camera, and here I use the custom bokeh image. If you go to your camera and to the Karma tab, you have the option to use a lens shader. For this, you have to create a material network, jump in and create a physical lens, Karma physical lens. And here you have the option to set it, the bokeh shape, to a texture map. And I use a grayscale gorilla simulated bokeh. And in the camera itself, you can select the physical lens node from the material network. The lighting is also super simple. I use a dome light and an area light. Dome light is here to fill the scene slightly, to have a base lighting of the room. And for the area light, I use it with a gobo texture. You have to create a light filter library, jump in and create a gobo node, Karma light filter gobo. Then you can select your gobos. You can change your wrap mode to repeat, streak, or decal. I use here decal. And in here, you have to select it on the light filters here to get like a gobo effect. If you change this mode to repeat, you have an endless repetition of the texture to create more lovely atmosphere and To create more realistic, I used a Karma fog box to have a little fog in here. I hope you liked the video and I look forward to showing you the next one.